All right, so we're kicking off another deep dive, and you know why you're here, right?
Hmm.
We're going to try to figure out why certain companies are getting so much attention from investors.
Yeah, and we've got quite the mix of companies to dig into.
We've got everything from those buzzy fintech companies like Square and Robinhood, all the way to the giants like Amazon and Microsoft.
It's going to be fun to see what's driving their success.
Exactly. By the end of this, you'll know not just who's hot, but WHY, they're hot, and maybe even what to watch out for as an investor.
What's really cool is that it's not just a list of companies, it's like a snapshot of the whole market. We're talking about trends that are shaping the future. I mean, finance, technology, how we live our lives, it's all connected.
I like that, a snapshot. Okay,
Right.
so let's get this snapshot started with those fintech disruptors, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right, so Square, or SQ if you're looking them up, they've come a long way from those little white card readers, haven't they?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Their Cash App, it's just exploded in popularity. People love the features like, what is it, direct deposit, and even Bitcoin trading.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that Bitcoin trading. That's a big draw for a lot of people.
And don't forget their big move with Afterpay.
Oh, yeah, that was a smart one.
Super strategic.
Mhm.
They're right in the middle of that whole buy now, pay later thing, which is huge right now, especially with the younger crowd. It's changing how people spend money.
Square is definitely tapping into new ways we handle our finances. Then you've got Robinhood, ticker symbol HOOD, who kind of shook things up with those commission-free trades.
Yeah, free trades, who would have thought?
Right. I remember when they first came out, I thought, okay, what's the catch? There's got to be a catch.
Well, there's been some controversy about how they make money. It's called payment for order flow. They basically get paid a fee by certain market makers to route trades their way.
Oh, so it's not really free.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's raised some questions about whether investors are getting the best possible prices on those trades. Regulators have definitely taken notice.
Free trades dot sounds great until it doesn't, right? Always good to look under the hood a little bit. Now, SoFi is another one, ticker symbol SYI. They want to be like your one-stop shop for all things personal finance.
I think what's interesting about SoFi is, yeah, they're part of the buy now, pay later trend, but they're not stopping there. They're aiming to become a full-blown bank.
Wow, that's ambitious.
It is. They're already offering checking accounts, loans, even investment stuff all in one platform. SoFi's going after traditional banks and AD, the other fintech companies. That's a bold move.
The whole financial world is changing, isn't it? And speaking of big changes, let's talk about the cloud.
Uh-oh. Everybody's favorite topic.
I know, right? Everyone talks about it, but it still feels kind of mysterious, you know?
Yeah, kind of like magic. But instead of pulling rabbits out of hats, it's data.
All right, good point. Let's start with Snowflake, ticker symbol SNOW. Their cloud data platform is pretty complex. How would you explain that to someone who's, say, not a tech expert?
Well, imagine a library, but digital and huge. And it's not for books, it's for all the data that companies collect. Snowflake gives them the tools to store all that data, organize it, make sense of it, all in the cloud.
Okay, I think I'm getting it. So it's like giving companies a way to manage all that information they're swimming in.
Yeah, exactly. And their IPO a few years back, massive success. It shows you just how excited investors are about this whole data and cloud thing.
Riding the wave, it sounds like. And we can't talk about cloud without mentioning the big guy, Amazon, ticker symbol AMZN. I mean, they're basically running the world at this point, aren't they? You order your toothpaste, your TV, maybe even a house from them.
Maybe not a house, not yet at least.
But their cloud business, AWS, that's a whole other story. They're dominant, right?
Amazon Web Services, it's the king of the cloud. Websites, apps, even stuff the government uses, they're all running on AWS. But here's the kicker. Amazon isn't content with just being the cloud king. They're using that dominance to push into all sorts of new areas.
Really? Like what?
Think healthcare, Amazon Pharmacy, Amazon Care. They're serious about becoming a major player in healthcare.
I had no idea their reach was that big. Okay, how about we switch gears for a minute and talk about something that's been in the news a lot lately? Semiconductors.
The brains of our devices.
The chips that power everything. Phones, cars, like you were saying before, even AI. And this whole industry is in the middle of this crazy race, right?
It's heating up, that's for sure. We've got a global chip shortage that's been messing with supply chains, and it's making the competition even fiercer.
It's like a classic rivalry, you know?
Yeah.
You've got Intel, ticker symbol INTC, they're trying to hold on to their position at the top. But then you have AMD, ticker symbol AMD, coming in strong with all these new advancements in chip technology.
Yeah, it's a real battle. And then there's NVIDIA, ticker symbol NVDA.
The graphics card people, right?
Yep, known for their gaming cards, but they're not stopping there. They're going all in on artificial intelligence.
Wow, so their chips are in things like self-driving cars and robots.
Exactly. All sorts of advanced stuff. They even tried to buy ARM Holdings, remember? It didn't work out, but it shows you how high the stakes are in this industry.
Makes you wonder what they'll try next.
Yeah.
Now, there are two other semiconductor players I want to bring up. Broadcom, ticker symbol AVGO, and Marvell, ticker symbol MRVL. They're both focused on data infrastructure, which seems like it's only going to get more important as our world gets more digital.
Couldn't agree more. And Broadcom, they've been on a shopping spree. They've acquired companies like CA Technologies and Symantec.
So they're not afraid to make big moves.
Nope, they're definitely playing to win. It's something to watch, for sure.
It's fascinating how it all ties together.
Hmm.
Before we move on, I'm curious, what stood out to you so far? Anything that's caught your attention?
I think what's striking me the most is the speed of everything, the innovation, and how all these industries are influencing each other. The cloud, it's not just about storage, it's creating this ripple effect across everything. It needs the chips, the data centers, the software.
Yeah, and then you throw AI on top of that.
Exactly. And it all comes back to how we're living and working in this increasingly digital world. It's exciting and a little overwhelming, to be honest.
A little overwhelming, but definitely exciting. And that's what makes these deep dives so much fun. Okay, so we've got more companies to talk about. Some of them are doing some really interesting things. For example, I got to admit, I'm super fascinated by voice AI. And there's this company called SoundHound that's making some waves.
I've heard of them.
They're still private, so we can't buy stock in them yet, but they're definitely worth watching. What's your take on voice AI?
Voice AI is huge right now. I mean, it's everywhere. Your smart speaker, your phone, it's all voice AI. SoundHound, they're working on really advanced stuff like voice recognition and conversation AI.
So their tech could end up in all sorts of gadgets and services in the future.
Potentially, yeah. But they're up against some big competition. You know, Google, Amazon. They have the resources and they're already established in the voice AI space.
It's a David versus Goliath scenario. I'll be rooting for the underdog. Okay, let's talk crypto. We have to talk about Marathon Digital, ticker symbol MARA, because I know you're interested in that.
Always.
They're all about Bitcoin mining. So is that like the get-rich-quick scheme everyone talks about?
Well, maybe not get rich quick, but it is a way for investors to get involved with Bitcoin without directly buying it. Marathon mines Bitcoin, which basically means they're using computers to verify transactions and add them to the Bitcoin blockchain.
So you're betting on Bitcoin, but through a company that's doing the mining.
Right. But remember, there are risks. Mining uses a ton of energy, and the price of Bitcoin, well, it's a roller coaster.
It's not for the faint of heart. Okay, last but not least, we have to talk about MicroStrategy, ticker symbol MSTR. This is a company that's gone all in on Bitcoin. Their CEO, Michael Saylor, he's like a Bitcoin evangelist.
He's definitely not shy about his love for Bitcoin.
So they've been using company money, even taking on debt, to buy a huge amount of Bitcoin. It's like they're putting all their eggs in one basket.
It's a bold strategy, that's for sure. Is it genius or is it super risky? Only time will tell, but it definitely makes you think.
I'm thinking my head might explode from all this information. We've got fintech disruptors, cloud giants, this whole semiconductor battle royale going on, AI contenders, and a company betting everything on Bitcoin. How do we even begin to make sense of it all?
The key is to look for the connections, the bigger picture. We can't just look at each company on its own. We have to see how they fit into the overall landscape, the trends that are driving everything. Take the rise of cloud computing, for example. It's not just about data storage. It's changing everything.
Okay, I see what you mean. The cloud needs those powerful chips to handle all the data, which is why the semiconductor race is so important. And it needs those massive data centers, right?
Exactly. And then you need the innovative software to make sense of it all. It's like a chain reaction.
Wow, so advancements in one area drive growth in another?
It's all connected. And let's not forget about the future of finance. Square, Robinhood, SoFi, they're all shaking things up. Are we moving towards a more decentralized financial system where technology is even more important? These are the questions we need to be thinking about. You're hitting on something really important there. It's not just about understanding these companies. It's about understanding the bigger trends, the forces that are shaping the future of everything.
That's a lot to process. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
Oh, we've just begun.
Yep.
But that's why we do these deep dives. We try to understand these forces and how they're impacting our world.
Before we move on, let's take a minute to recap some of the key things we've learned. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground.
We've seen how fintech is disrupting traditional finance, giving us new ways to manage our money. We've explored this battle for dominance in the semiconductor industry, driven by the need for more and more computing power. And we've peeked into the world of voice AI and how it could change how we interact with technology.
It's not just about understanding each company individually. It's about seeing the connections, the bigger trends that tie them all together. The cloud, AI, the importance of data. These are the forces that are shaping not just the business world, but our lives and the future of how we live, really.
Absolutely. As you think about these companies and the trends that connect them, here's a question to keep in mind. Which of these companies do you think is best positioned for long-term success? Which one would you invest in? Think about what we've discussed and see if you can connect the dots to form your own conclusions.
That's a great question to leave our listeners with. We've given you a lot to think about, and we're not done yet. There's so much more to explore.
Make sure you join us for part 2 of this deep dive. We'll be back soon.
We'll pick up right where we left off. See you then.
You know, it's really cool to see how interested you are in these companies and all the trends shaping their future.
I am. It's really interesting.
You're really thinking about this stuff, not just looking for hot stock tips. You want to understand what's driving all this innovation.
Exactly. I feel like we're piecing together this giant puzzle, connecting all these trends and companies to see the bigger picture. And some of these companies, they're taking huge GE risks.
I know, right?
Like MicroStrategy putting so much faith in Bitcoin. That's a high-stakes game right there.
It really is. And speaking of high stakes, let's circle back to semiconductors for a minute. We talked about Intel and AMD, but there's another player in the data center space that we should mention. Supermicro Computer, ticker symbol SMCI.
Oh, yeah, Supermicro. I've heard of them.
They're the ones building that hardware infrastructure, the servers and stuff, that powers a huge chunk of the digital world. And those are in high demand now that everyone's moving everything to the cloud.
Makes sense. And with AI and all those data-heavy applications, the need for that computing power is only going to increase.
Exactly. And Supermicro is in a great position to capitalize on that. They're known for being able to customize their solutions, really tailor them to what their clients need.
That's smart.
Plus, they're all about energy efficiency, which is becoming more and more important in the data center world.
It sounds like they're doing all the right things. Innovation, customization, sustainability. Investors love that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm kind of curious to get your thoughts on Broadcom's strategy. They've been on an acquisition spree, buying up companies like CA Technologies and Symantec.
Yeah, they have.
Is that a sign of strength? Or are they getting over their heads?
That's a good question. It could go either way, honestly. I mean, acquisitions can be a really good way to get new skills and enter new markets, maybe even knock out the competition.
Right, but they can also be risky, right?
For sure. I mean, integrating all those new companies into your business,
Yeah.
not easy. You've got to worry about culture clashes, maybe you lose some key people. And don't forget the regulators. They tend to get a little antsy when companies start making too many big acquisitions, especially in industry like semiconductors.
So there's definitely a downside.
There's always a downside. Broadcom's success is going to hinge on how well they can bring all these different companies together and make them work as a team.
I guess we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. Okay, we can't talk about all this without mentioning the giant in the room, Alphabet.
Ticker symbol GOGL for anyone following along.
The parent company of Google. I mean, they're everywhere, aren't they?
They really are. They're the kings of online advertising. They're Google Cloud Platform. That's a major player in the cloud space. And then they're investing in all sorts of futuristic stuff. Self-driving cars with Waymo, healthcare with Verily. It's like there's nothing they don't do.
But they're facing a lot of scrutiny too, right? With all that success comes attention. They've got those antitrust investigations happening all over the world. Governments are wondering if they have too much power, if they're stifling competition.
It's a tough spot to be in. Even the most successful companies have to deal with those changing regulations and public perception.
It's a good reminder that no one's immune to the challenges of this ever-changing world. Okay, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's step back and make sure we're connecting the dots.
Always good to check in.
We talked about those fintech disruptors like Square and Robinhood, the cloud giants like Amazon and Alphabet, the big players in semiconductor space like Intel, AMD, and NVIDIA. What's really striking me is how interconnected all these companies and industries are.
That's the key takeaway here.
The success of one company can really fuel the growth of another. It's like this delicate ecosystem, right?
Absolutely. It's complex and constantly changing. And being able to see those connections, well, that's what's going to give you an edge as an investor. Now, before we wrap things up, I want to mention one more company that's doing some really interesting things in a space that's only becoming more important, Marvell Technology.
Oh yeah, Marvell. Ticker symbol MRVL.
They're all about data infrastructure. Those are the chips and systems that make sure information can flow quickly and reliably across networks.
Super important stuff.
And they're playing a key role in things like 5G and the expansion of cloud computing. They're in a good spot to ride these waves of growth, especially with that recent acquisition of Inphi. It's boosted their capabilities even more.
Wow, so they're kind of a silent powerhouse, huh?
In a way, yeah. Definitely worth keeping an eye on.
I'll add them to my watch list.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, and I feel like I'm starting to see those connections.
Those patterns are starting to emerge.
We've got the cloud, AI, the importance of data. It's a lot to take in.
It is.
But before we wrap things up, I want to go back to something you said earlier about connecting the dots.
I knew you were going to say that.
Can you explain a little more about why that's so important?
Sure. When you're focused on individual companies, it's easy to get caught up in all the hype, the stock prices going up and down, the
I can
headlines.
see that.
But if you really want to understand a company's potential, you have to zoom out. Look at the bigger picture. Think about the trends that are driving their growth, the challenges they're facing, how they're adapting to all these changes.
It's not just about the numbers. It's about the story behind the numbers.
Exactly. And as we've seen, those stories are all intertwined.
It's like we're solving a giant mystery, except the mystery is the future.
Exactly. And the mystery isn't just about which companies are going to win or lose. It's about understanding the forces that are shaping the world around us.
This has been such a fascinating conversation. I feel like I'm really starting to see the connections now.
That's great to hear.
But I also feel like we've only scratched the surface.
Oh, yeah, there's always more to learn.
So where do we go from here? What's the next step in this whole process of discovery?
Well, that's up to you, really. Maybe you dive deeper into the research on a specific company that caught your eye. Or maybe you explore those connections between different industries. Start paying closer attention to the news and look for the underlying trends. It's all about staying curious.
I love that. Follow your curiosity, make those connections, and see where it takes you.
It's a journey of discovery.
Okay, before we go off on our separate journeys, I think it's time to wrap up this part of our deep dive.
I agree. We've covered a lot of ground, and I hope it's been thought-provoking and helpful.
It's been awesome. Thanks again for sharing all your knowledge with us.
Happy to do it.
And to our listeners, thanks for hanging out with us. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep making those connections.
We'll be back soon with the final part of our deep dive. We'll go even deeper into these companies and the future they're building.
You know, I've been thinking about those second-order effects.
It's a concept that really sticks with you.
It is, especially when we're talking about these companies and technologies. It's easy to get caught up in the moment, what's hot right now.
Yeah, but the real insights, they come from understanding those less obvious connections. You know, the potential ripple effects, the things that might not be clear right away.
Like when we were talking about Square and that whole buy now, pay later trend, it seems like a great idea on the surface. Super convenient for consumers, especially for big purchases.
Right.
But I'm starting to wonder about the potential downsides. What if people start overspending?
That's a valid concern.
Could it lead to a whole new wave of consumer debt? These are the kinds of questions we need to be asking.
Absolutely. And it's not just about individual consumers either.
Right.
We have to think about the bigger picture. What does the rise of these fintech companies like Square and Robinhood mean for the whole financial system? Do they create new opportunities? Or do they introduce new risks we need to be aware of?
It's like we're trying to predict the future.
The future of finance is definitely a tricky one to predict.
It's constantly changing. But even if we can't see exactly what's coming next, at least we can try to understand the forces that are shaping it.
Exactly. And that's what makes these deep dives so interesting, so important. It's not just about stock tips, it's about trying to understand the world around us. Technology, it's not just a tool, it's transforming everything. Society, the economy, how we think. It's all changing.
And we've seen that in the companies we've discussed.
We have.
The growth of cloud computing, the rise of AI, the whole cryptocurrency phenomenon, they're all reshaping the world.
And they're all connected. It's not just these isolated trends happening independently. They're influencing each other.
It's like a giant web.
Exactly. A complex, interconnected web. And as we move forward, it's crucial that we engage with these ideas, ask those tough questions, really try to understand this interplay between technology, society, and the economy.
It's a reminder that we're not just passive observers here. We're part of this.
We are. We're all shaping the future, whether we realize it or not.
By learning about these things, connecting the dots, asking the right questions, we can have a more active role in shaping that future.
That's a really powerful thought.
It is. This has been such an insightful deep dive.
I've really enjoyed it.
I feel like I've learned so much, and I'm excited to continue exploring these ideas. Thank you so much for guiding us through this.
It's been my pleasure. It's always fun to connect with people who are as curious and engaged as you are.
Well, you've definitely sparked my curiosity. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this adventure of discovery. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep connecting those dots. The future is out there waiting to be shaped, and we can all play a part in creating it.
Well said. Until next time.